Hey folks, Kilt-Man here. Kilt-Man at your services. How are you all? Hope you're all doing very, very well. Now, regular viewers, cast your mind back a scant dozen videos or so ago. I began what I did say would be a very sporadic and random series of videos about myths, legends, folklore, superstitions, just things that quirk our interest, and just tweak our suspicions about the world and the fabric in which we live. Cryptozoology, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, UFOs, everything. The fairy folk, all that kind of stuff. Dogmen, and in fact even Kilt-Men. There's one here now which proves it. Kilt-Men do exist. They walk amongst us. In some cases, they strut amongst us. Why they do. Anyway, so here's another one for you. And this is something that I heard about a long time ago and then just went, you've got to be joking. What the hell is that shite? And then I thought, because I'm doing these videos, let's rediscover it, shall we? What is it then? It's the Mongolian Death Worm. Oh yes. The Mongolian Death Worm in the Gobi Desert. The Gobi Desert, it's bloody huge. It's horrible as well. It's arid, it's rocky, it's barren. It has a massive ice field as well. It's boiling hot and freezing cold. Oh, like everyone having a fever. Like the shivers and shakes throughout the night. And that's a landscape and an entire environment. Wars have been fought there, nomad tribes have been there. Everything's been there. You have camels, you have snow leopards, you've got all sorts of weird and wonderful wildlife. But you have, if it's true, the Mongolian Death Worm. So what is this Death Worm then, Kilty? It is a beastie of horrible, wormy, wriggly stuff which can be between 2 to 5 feet long. 2 to 5 feet long, although in certain legends it's a lot longer than that. And it's either bright red or bright yellow, but primarily bright red. And this bastard, this wee sand-dwelling bastard, which apparently hibernates for 10 months of the year and then comes out after the monsoons in certain areas of the Mongolian desert. It comes out, I think, between June and July for just 2 months. But then it's hungry. Oh, hey, it's hungry. And it comes out, surfaces, it's under the ground, it burrows up, and it can incapacitate its prey and kill it. To touch it is absolutely pure toxic. It's corrosive. Its venom is corrosive. So it has venom all around its entire body. You touch it, you're dead. It breathes on you, you're dead. It spits at you, you're dead. But get on this. And this is ancient myths and folklore surrounding this beastie. This bastard can discharge an electrical force. And it can, not just if you touch it, you get electrocuted. It can send electrical jolt across a bit of a distance to its victim. It can take out camels, it can take out horses, it can take out men and women and every denomination that you choose to identify with. Is it real though? Is it? Well, who knows? There have been a lot of expeditions. Cryptozoologists have been there many times and conducted surveys in the areas where the locals said, yes, it's there. Witnesses, no photographic evidence, no evidence whatsoever in all points of fact. But they dig up the soil and they try to get traces of this corrosive element. But of course, victims of it will be completely burned away or consumed. And this thing as well, again, I love these things because it's conflicting evidence on this. One version has that it's red and it has an open sort of maw of a mouth at one end, ringed with fangs. That's a worrying fucking proposition for you. A great big maggoty worm thing, 5 foot long, that can electrocute you, can poison you, and it's got great big fucking teeth and draw you all in. Dear God. Another version has it that it has a mouth at one end and another mouth at the other end. Double mouthed. Well, we know that worms, you cut a worm in half, you know, they tend to, like, they can just carry on. Just they split and become 2 worms, or 3 worms, or 4 worms, depending how many times you cut them, obviously, how cruel you may be, but how much time you've got on your hands. But so they can carry on, they can rebuild, regenerate. So this thing, a mouth at 2 ends, you've got to start thinking to yourself, you start consuming food, unless, of course, this corrosive toxin just absorbs and assimilates, melts down any food source, and it goes straight into its bloodstream, its whatever system it's got to digest things. My point being that you'd think a mouth at one end, an arsehole at the other, you'd be shitting these things out afterwards, or the remnants, the bit you don't need. You've got 2 mouths, one's the unlucky one. You'd be forever trying to be like, I'm biting. If you turn around, it's my turn to bite. No. I don't know. But this thing has endured for, well, millennia. As I say, you have lots of rare animal species in the Gobi Desert. Bactrian camels, snow leopards, and other stuff. Lots of weird birds of prey as well. They can live in these arid landscapes. It's very sparse vegetation. It's a semi-desert as well. It's not primarily sand. It's rocky and barren, and it's hard. It's impacted crust. Lots of highly mountainous valleys, and just tundra sort of stuff. But it clearly it's got the monsoon season, so worms come out when the rains come down. That's when they start wriggling about and they come to the surface, and that's when all the birds come down. Birds are like, no, worms. So you imagine out there in the Gobi Desert, maybe your northern China and your southern Mongolia. This the Gobi Desert encompasses. It's fucking huge, by the way, and not a great place to venture into. But so about the Valley of the Gwangi, Ray Harryhausen's movie about the dinosaurs in the lost New Mexico desert, and the cowboys find them and rodeo them in. So you've got these throwbacks. So if you're going to have these massive worms, the Mongolian Death Worm, you're going to have great big birds of prey. Because once the monsoons have hit and these things start coming up to the surface in the moist soil and sand and turf, not much turf, but the moist ground, then the birds above are going like, oh, what happened that? Then again, these things spit acid and they're corrosive, and yeah, maybe. But what prey would have preyed on them? What animal would have preyed on them back in prehistoric times? If there's a basis in truth on this. And there could well be, as I've always said, myths and legends, no matter how preposterous they may sound, there is a basis of truth in them all. Like, we're all afraid of spiders. Well, maybe not all of us, but a hell of a lot of us are, and with good reason. Do I need to rake over the wound that I got from a spider bite, 3-4 years ago, in this house, in the Kilty mansion? Just a apparently normal British house / garden spider, because they're very much the same bloody critter. Put a bite on me which lasted weeks and weeks and scarred me permanently, and it took 2 doses of antibiotics to treat it. And that was a normal British house spider, or thereabouts. So, we have fears of spiders. Why? And I've said this a million times over, that back in prehistoric times, if we've got this phobia about certain things, these things were always bigger and more threatening, more dangerous to you back then. When everything back then, you're a caveman, everything is trying to kill you. You're competing with not only your other human beings, Homo sapiens, Cro-Magnon, Neanderthals, you're competing with all them, but also the animals which are around at the time. You've got to kill them to eat, to live, which means fighting them. So everything around you is also dangerous, and it's trying to survive for itself. There's no food chain of like farms and agriculture and supermarkets. There's none of that. No, you've got to fight to kill your food so you can eat it. So things were bigger back then. So we always had this idea that, you know, well, sharks, you know, everything was bigger back then. The megalodon was, what, 15 times the size of a great white shark, you know, huge fucking thing. I'd like to believe they still exist in the deep, you know, dark of the Mariana Trench. And, you know, woolly mammoths were bigger than elephants. Bears back then were much bigger. You know, you saw a grizzly bear can stand, what, 12 to 16 foot on its hind legs. But the Ursus primus, or whatever it was called back then, was about 25 foot fucking tall. Huge thing. Everything was bigger. Why? I don't know. Massively great protein source, and no chemicals in the food, in the vegetation, no chemtrails, no nothing to, you know, poison you, no toxins. Everything was natural. So things just grew some more. So snakes were bigger, wolves were definitely bigger. So predators were all bigger. Spiders could well have been bigger. We'll get back onto the Mongolian Death Worm, trust me. But spiders, they must have been bigger. I know everyone goes, well, they can't have been huge because they have, you know, their skeleton, well, they haven't got a skeleton, it just doesn't work. They couldn't be massive because gravity will work on them and they won't be able to move. We know spiders can fucking shift, can't they? Like that, blink of an eye, like warp speed. Bastards. And they can pounce, and they trap, and they ambush, and they're just fucking evil. So even small bastards, mankind has learned, shit, don't touch that, don't go near that, because when it bites you, oh my god, your Sydney funnel web spider, those fangs can go through fucking sheet steel. You can wear a suit of armour, it's going to go straight through it. It can go through boot leather. It can go through your khaks, your trousers, your kilts, everything. Whatever you wear, it can penetrate, and that poison, it's going to kill you within hours unless you get the anti-venom pumped into you pretty pronto. So mankind's learned to, you know, oh shit, that is nasty. Is that kind of fear, does that fear evolve into, you know, next generations and, you know, over millennia, that, or back in those days, they must have been massive, when really they may have been the same bloody size, but they were so damn dangerous, and there wasn't antitoxins, anti-venoms back then, so God, don't go near that. So it puts this fear of God and spiders into mankind, and it filters all the way up through evolution. And the same goes for the Mongolian Death Worm. Who's to say there isn't worms out there that aren't actually poisonous? That can, you know, whatever they secrete some kind of oil, some kind of, you know, resin or whatever, which is horrendously nasty to human touch. Maybe their foul breath is enough to incapacitate, you know, a horse or a camel. Anyway, I said horse and I actually went horse because I am trying to suppress that cough. Yes, you guys know, I'm suffering with this 100-day cough apparently. That's not confirmed, but it does seem to fit the bill. And I'm only like 5 days into it. Holy shit. But hey, let's see how we do. So we know that a lot of animals were bigger back then, and mythology and folklore has taken over and amplified and magnified, enlargified a lot of these things in myth and legend, superstition and folklore. So your Mongolian Death Worm, they used to say that the worms which were genuinely dangerous. You've got toads which are poisonous to touch, toxic. You've got mushrooms poisonous to touch and eat. You've got plant life that's like that. So, back then, once you and your tribe learned, shit, don't try and eat that. Don't try and catch it. When you see it, run away. It then gets cave paintings and oral history telling to the next generation in your tribe. It goes on and on and on. Well, this thing's out there somewhere. And then with the advent of agriculture, new cultures coming in, and planes and environmental pollution, these things die back and they recede, or do they? So what I'm saying is, like, the Mongolian Death Worm may actually have been a real thing. Maybe not 5 foot long, or who knows? Maybe it could have been. A mouth at 2 ends. It just shit down the middle, and very, very toxic to touch. So if it's toxic to touch, and suddenly you blister and you burn and it gets into your bloodstream and you're dead. Well, old tribes who don't understand the mechanics behind poisons and venoms, they're going to go, look what it did to him. Oh my God, run away. He barely even touched it. And they're going to think, electrical discharge, and this thing gets created. This whole mythology grows and expands and it's passed down. Now the thing is, back in the 1920s, paleontologist Roy Chapman Andrews was going out to Mongolia, to the Gobi Desert, to find fossils and stuff, which he did find. Found some great unusual stuff and brought them back, and a whole new level of paleontology took place because of his deeds. But he was recruited by the I'm not sure if it was a president or a prime minister of Mongolia, but someone right up in the higher echelons of power of Mongolia, a warlord, a Genghis Khan, said, I want you to go and find the Mongolian Death Worm. He said this in some kind of Mongolian dialect, and oh boy, it was translated. He meant, okay, I'll do that. I'll pay you. I said I'd do it anyway, but you're going to pay me. Okay. Went off months and months, probably a couple of years in fact, and found fuck all to do with a death worm. But he did find all these fossils and made a name for himself. But he didn't discount the fact that this thing could be there, because he met tons and tons of eyewitnesses who said, yeah, it does exist. It's up in those mountains there. It's on that bit there, but it only comes out a couple of months, and it's very dangerous. And he wrote about this, and that became kind of like a treatise, a thesis on the Mongolian Death Worm. Other people have followed suit. I'm not sure how easy it is to get into the Gobi Desert these days, with lots of its neck of the woods isn't the most friendly of places. I don't think it ever was, for that matter. But you have had teams of cryptozoologists who've gone over there, and yeah, you guessed it, found fuck all. But they've took back soil and sort of fossil remains of where worms have crawled across and shimmied across the landscape way back, eons ago. So these things live underground, right? They're meant to be seen. Like Frank Herbert's sandworms in June, on Arrakis. You'll know they're coming. The sand and the ground will ripple because they're there. So run away, run. Frank Herbert, I've seen that some people have said Frank Herbert based his sandworms on the Mongolian Death Worm. I'm not sure that's true. Frank Herbert actually said, I based the sandworms who were protecting the spice, which is the treasure they want on Arrakis, all this Frank Herbert universe of Dune. They're protecting that, and any movement above the ground, they can sense it, and they'll attack and they're fucking huge. They're great big worms with great big mouths and all that, and they're very, very savage and nasty things. But they're protecting. And he said, well, I based it on European mythology of dragons. Dragons were always hiding hoards of gold. In certain cultures, that was the idea. Certainly, Nordic and a lot of Eastern European ideas, dragons, and certainly like Far Eastern with the Chinese, dragons were very, very important. And what were dragons? They were called worms back then. Dragons, but dragons were also serpents. Worms, serpents, dragons. It all fits that bill. But of course, dragons have legs and they breathe fire. So the Mongolian Death Worm can kill by projecting some electric shock. Fire. See how it's all coming together? Every culture has these ideas, but their people interpret them in their own sort of fastidious, sort of insular sort of way. So back there in Mongolia and the Gobi Desert, that was electric supercharge, but in Europe it's breathing fire. It's weird, isn't it? It's weird. In the Mongolian desert, Gobi Desert, you have legless lizards. You have snakes as well, a lot of snakes, but you have legless lizards. They are lizards, but they slither around without any legs. But they've got a mouth and a head like a lizard. So that, if you saw that, couldn't say it was a lot of lizards are brightly coloured. Imagine that red or yellow suddenly coming out the ground in front of you. Back then, oh my God, and maybe it's a particularly large version of the species. They're going to shit themselves, good style. It's the Death Worm, Exactly. Boom. Now, there is a film on this. I've not seen it, by the way, but in looking into this, there is a sci-fi channel movie from I think 2010 called, what do you think it's called? Mongolian Death Worm. I haven't seen it, so I don't know, but you've got other wormy movies. Jeff Lieberman's 70s eco-horror, Squirm, about like a big storm, the power cables come down and they ignite the slushy mud and turn all the worms there into carnivorous bastards. A young Rick Baker did the effects for it, so you've got worms going under people's skin, burrowing in through their skin and moving around. You've got millions of real worms, and some of the cast members are flung into these vast pits of worms. Oh, they're all over their faces. It's a great film. I remember reviewing it many, many years ago for AV Forums, and I love Jeff Lieberman's stuff, and Blue Sunshine, fantastic. Squirm is one of my favourites of 70s eco horror. I should cover it properly at some point. I maybe will. Maybe will. But you had, of course, what's the obvious one? Tremors. Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward, awesome movie. Are we playing the music? We're playing the Squirm at the moment. Let's play a bit of the Graboids from Tremors. Let's have a little wormy playlist going on here. We all know and love Tremors. How many fucking sequels and a TV show as well? What the hell? And the thing about the Tremors series, I've only seen Tremors and loved it, but I haven't seen it for a long time. I've seen all the other movies, but then dismissed them. But none of them were crap. None of them were actually that bad. But you look at the likes of all your sci-fi channel, shark movies, Sharknado, Shark Octopus, I couldn't even say it then. All this kind of crap, which are really stupidly crap, obviously. But the Tremors movies actually were pretty good. Now, they were the Graboids, great big wormy things under the ground or the desert, and they're chewing people's heads off and all sorts. And you've got to stay above the ground, and you've got to pole vault and jump across chasms and stuff. to avoid these things, which will find you. It's great. It's wonderful. You have Blood Beach, and Blood Beach sort of bridges the gap from Jaws to Tremors. The great tagline from 1980's Blood Beach with the great John Saxon. The tagline was aping Jaws 2, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water. Jaws 2. And they said, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, you can't even cross the fucking beach because these things live in the sand. Wormholes, and they suck people down. They pull them back up, and half the body's gone. Heads were coming up, limbs were coming up. It's a brilliant, brilliant movie. It's pure B-movie, cheesy horror trash, but it's bloody wonderful, and it's actually severely nasty as well. And I love it. Blood Beach is great, and of course they are tentacle worm-like creatures, which are causing all the death and ruination. And there's a nice twist at the end. So, wormy movies do exist. As I say, there's one for the Mongolian Death Worm itself, but I really can't, verify its quality. I wouldn't have thought much. But I remember, I'm going back. This is in the 70s. I would be about maybe 9 years old. So you're talking 1978, maybe 78. And me, I'm from a big family, but I was way behind my brothers and my sister. So by the time I was born, they were moving out. And so I was brought up pretty much as a spoiled brat, an only child, But everyone, I had brothers and a sister, and they always showered stuff upon me. So I had a great time. So I went on holidays just with my mum and dad. And we had friends down in Bournemouth, down the south coast of England. And we actually lived in Boscombe, which is just up the road from Bournemouth. So we go down to Bournemouth Beach. I don't know about these days, but it was a huge resort back in the day, 70s and early 80s. And to get down to the beach, I think the east cliff, I'm not sure, I don't remember. It was a big, massive zigzag path all the way down to the beach, which when you're a kid was great, because you fucking ran down there, way, and it was like you imagine Amity to be, which Amity does not look like this. Blazing sunshine, really scintillating blue, inviting waters lapping at the shore. Beautiful sounds. It was just amazing. It was pure idyllic. And as a kid, I'd run down there. Oh, it was great, and I'd fly into the sand. Oh, and I'd strip off and leg it into the sea. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. It was a nightmare going back up those fucking zigzags. At the end of the day, when you were sunburned and you had sand up your arse crack and everywhere else, you're like, you just wanted to go to bed. Have a drink of milk or Coke or whatever. Like, I didn't drink whiskey back in those days. And but you had to go back up this fucking zigzag, and you're carrying deck chairs and your windbreak and all that. Oh, fucking hell, Jesus! And every step, your trainers were full of sand as well. Your toes were crusty with sand. You had crab bites all over you, crab pincer marks. Fucking nightmarish. But I loved it. If I remember rightly, there was an elevator or a cable car. I could be wrong. That could be another beach I'm confusing it with. But either way, whatever that elevator cable car was to get to the beach, you couldn't get in it because there was a queue a fucking mile long. So you ended up, just take the fucking zigzag. So, but my point is, he says pointing, we were there. I had airfix soldiers back in those days, and I had millions of boxes of Union soldiers, American Civil War, and Confederate soldiers, and I didn't paint them. So you had blue for Union, grey for Confederates, and we bought box after box. So I had literally fucking hundreds on each side, and I'd take them down with me, and I'd build sand dunes, and I'd have them all on these. They're only small figures, they're tiny, but I loved them. And I had staged great big battles there. Well, anyway, that was one thing, but I'd be down there. I remember one day, just over yonder, that way, and there's some very, very attractive young ladies. I may have only been like 9 or 10 years old, but I knew what I was looking at, and I liked what I was looking at. And this girl starts screaming and going, like that, and like looking down at the ground, the sand. So I thought, well, it's got to be like a bee or a wasp or something like that, you know. And then a mate gets up off a little lounger thing and goes, oh God, and looks at her, oh no. And then because of this little furore, everybody around is densely packed as well. It was just hundreds of people, families and all sorts there. Like everybody around was going like you know, what's going on there? And then they look at the sand and they go, oh. So me, my mum and dad did the same. What? Forsooth, what yonder? Trouble is ensuing. Look at the sand. Worms. Lots and lots of worms were coming up out of the sand. You know, you see on the sand the little sort of, you know, little will-o-wisp, that the walnut whip on sand. You know, like, oh, that's a worm that's been there. But normally it's when the sand is wet, the tide has come in and gone out, and it's now wet. Worms come up. That's when worms like to do whatever they do, whatever they feed on, they find it when it's wet. And that's when birds come down, as I said before. So, but this sand was like lovely and like, you know, it just filtered through your fingers. It was lovely and not, the word isn't silky, but you know what I mean. It's all finite and lovely and soft and wow, and not wet. So what the fuck were the worms doing? What had driven them up? And they were in this huge area. I can't say how many people. I'd like to think 50 to maybe 100 people were disturbed to the point where they all got up and were literally running and like on their tippy toes away from all of this, and grabbing all their things and leaving small kids behind, you know, like, oh yeah, feed on him. My dad had a Polaroid camera back in the 70s, you know, one of them fucking, and it come out and you go and you flap it around like that, oh, I still can't see that, instant, you know, oh, it's rubbish. Take another, and you're like, oh God. I took pictures of these worms, and we had those pictures. Now, we also evacuated as well. I have to say, we did, because it was very unpleasant. And they weren't Mongolian death worms, but it just seemed like they were coming up and they were coming at us, because the sun was blasting down. It was really super hot. The 70s, we had, in the UK, we had pure fucking, you know, it was like being on the equator. It was burning hot. It was great. And so what the hell drew these worms? They shouldn't be there. They're going to melt and shrivel up in the heat. No, they were like on a rampage. It was truly bizarre. It was like squirm. It genuinely was nasty. So we all vamoosed, and my dad took these pictures, and we had those pictures. I wish I had them now. Of course, my parents have gone now, and I have got a lot of the photographic albums. Remember those things? Photo albums, not on your phone where you've got a gazillion pictures in your file and this file and that file on your PC and all that, all digital. Proper photographs. I've got many of the albums. Well, to be honest with you, I didn't think to look for these pictures, but I'm pretty certain they're not there, because when we purloined all these and the house sales and all that and everything, collecting all the accoutrements of my mum and dad's life and history, I did go through these albums, and I definitely didn't see these, so I don't know where they've gone. But I remember he took those pictures, and they were fascinating, because these worms were really active, and it wasn't just like, oh, there's a couple there. It was thousands, if not millions, to upset that amount of people. So I don't know if anyone lives in Bournemouth or Boscombe and knows about this phenomena. please comment below and let me know, because it definitely happened, and it was kind of freakish, and it was nice to see lots of jiggly girls' bums in little bikini bottoms, and these little bums all scampering across the beach. And I'll tell you what, it was great going up that zigzag afterwards, because suddenly a new spurt in my life, you know, a spurt in my trunks. No. But yeah, no, but yeah. Gobi Desert, Mongolian Death Worm. Is it real, or is it Memorex? I don't know. As I said before, I think every myth, well, most myths and legends have a basis, some kind of basis in truth. So I can well believe that way back in the day, in that neck of the woods, there was a very poisonous eel-like worm, which was slightly larger than other worms, and would come up, and if you happen to step on it or be in its vicinity, or it crawled upon you, you'd die. You'd be poisoned and you'd die. So those people back then would learn to avoid that like the plague, and then over history and time, that story has evolved into something. They were bigger, the Mongolian Death Worm. You also had I've just thought now, Doctor Who did a similar sort of thing. They weren't worms, they were maggots. Doctor Who and the Green Death, it was John Pertwee. It was a Welsh mine, and there was toxic waste being pumped into the caves, and the worms were getting bigger and bigger, and these huge maggots were just like glowing green maggots. Fucking terrifying when you're a kid. And so yeah, you got that there. Doctor Who, and it was Tom Baker. Was it Tom Baker's first adventure? No, second adventure. First one was Robot, wasn't it? Second one was The Ark in Space. A forerunner for Alien. People held in like a hypersleep. An alien presence is there, which impregnates, assimilates. So hints of the Thing as well are in there, and it's green. It's called the Wyrn, Wirrn or Wyrn, Wyrn. Lots, again, like the maggots, lots of greenage and lots of green snail trails across this spaceship. I don't think they're worms, but if I remember rightly, I haven't seen it for a long time. If I remember rightly, the Doctor does find one of these in a pupal stage, which could be a maggot, a worm, the worm. So worms, you're all thinking, I'm not fighting about a worm. Well, there is. When you're sat on the beach and like you're about to go, I was about to go back in the water again, back in the sea, and my mother said like, "Oh, Christopher McAneny, you're beginning to prune." You know, but I wanted to go back out there on my yellow Lilo. What's the reference there? Come on now, I haven't got to spell it out for you. But Alex Kintner. But yeah, but that was a terrifying incident. I remember the exodus from the beach. Not everybody, it wasn't entirely the entire 3 miles of beach. It was an area, an enclave, but it wasn't by the sea, it was further back. It wasn't by the cliff, it was in the middle. Cliff back there, sea out there, worms all around us right here. Everybody fucking legged it. Worm fright? Is that something? Clearly in the Gobi Desert it is. So I've read a lot of sort of stories, but they're a bit shit, to be honest. You know, these supposed first-hand accounts of people who witnessed it, a camel being, you know, electrocuted and then melted down. But the thing is, there's zero evidence for all this. There's nothing, nothing to back it up whatsoever. But if you've got any kind of interest in the unusual, the mysterious, the unexplained. You know, you want these things to be there. And isn't that bizarre? Things that are really super, super dangerous. Like we want the megalodon to exist, to take down submarines and aircraft carriers. Why do we want that? And yet we do. We do. We want monsters to exist. I think we need to have monsters which are beyond our control. We have so many monsters in human monsters, be they in governments, be they serial killers, be they whatever. But they're prevalent all the way around us. We need something fantastical, because when you've got a fantastical beast, people will band together to like, oh, that's an existential beast. We must protect ourselves against that. So all of a sudden you have camaraderie, something which doesn't exist really in any other sort of circumstance. And don't say war, because war only breeds even worse. Extortion, corruption, greed, and wars they're great for prosperity and industry. Yes, they are. But the people who are out there are purloining things and making ground and making stuff for themselves. Your generals, your brigadiers, your boots on the ground. If they've got any savvy, they're making money out of this. Trust me, I know that wars will always be here, because there's little minutiae of industry for little individuals in there as well. It's always a way of making some moolah. So I think monsters, outsized creatures, they loom large in our imagination and throughout history and all of our cultures for a vast variety of reasons, but probably mainly to do with they are based on something which is true, but also we build them up to make them they're something which we've got common ground. You imagine caveman tribes, you're like, oh my god, there's a 80-foot saber-toothed tiger over there. To be honest, even a fucking normal size saber-toothed tiger is going to put the fear of whatever they believed in into them when it comes prowling around their caves. But that cave system over there with that tribe of dark-haired people against us fair-haired people, we hate you, but oh my god, look at this, we must band together to fight this, otherwise it's going to kill us all. And that's how alliances and truces and treaties are made. Wow, who'd have thought the Mongolian Death Worm would have enabled us to discuss mankind's heritage, its history, and its psychology, the psychology of the human species. Human. That's what we call ourselves. It's not what our real creators call us. It's just like, we're on a petri dish with a label and saying, failed experiment. Shit, yeah. Sorry about that. Humans. Oops. That didn't work out, did it? Leave them to it. So anyway, folks, the Mongolian Death Worm. I do love shit like this, because it makes you think. In the vast tracts of the wilderness, and the Gobi Desert has vast tracts of probably uncharted areas, same as Australia, same as South America, there's plenty of places where mankind hasn't been. They haven't trod there at all. So who's to say these things don't exist? They live, if it's true, they live underground for 10 months of the year, only come up for 2 months. Well, you think, well, we know when they're going to come up. Get the cameras on that area there. We've been told they live there, and did it. There you go. Same as the giants of Afghanistan, where of course, US Navy SEALs and US Marines and Rangers fought battles with these red-haired giants wearing furs. Well, we'll save that for maybe another episode of Kilty's Myths and Legends and Folklore, But for now, the Mongolian Death Worm. It's a great fucking name as well, though, isn't it? In the sea, the vast tracts of the sea. because well, as everyone is fond of telling you, if you go in to look at these things, like we know, well, say roughly 85%, 90% of the Earth's surface, the land surface. We know about 10 to 20% of what's beneath the sea, the vast oceans. They're always fond of telling you this, but space, you've got the moon, you've got solar system, you've got interstellar stuff, all that out there, and we know next to fuck all about what's below the surface of our waters. We just don't know. Wow, there's so much more to discuss then, isn't there? So anyway, I'm going to cut this short before the cough returns. So folks, in the meantime, in this ever wormy, wriggly in between time, please keep it Kilty, keep it Celtic, and I'm going to see you all and check out Blood Beach. Obviously check out Tremors. Oh, what's the other one? The Irish one. I don't think they're worms. It's called grabbers, and on Irish Island, meteorite, whatever, comes down, and all of a sudden these tentacled creatures are all over this island, and the only way to survive them is to get pissed. You've got to get pissed because they want blood and they want fresh water, but alcohol destroys, so the town drunk on an Irish island, just one town drunk, they don't touch him, he survives. So our heroes have to lock themselves into the pub and get themselves pissed to survive the night of this onslaught. It's genius. But they're grabbers, and I don't think they're not worms. So Tremors, Blood Beach, and Squirm, there's your ones, and Doctor Who and the Green Death, and there you go. I think maybe we still await the Great Worm movie. I don't know. Cheers, y'all. As I say, comment below, let me know what you think about this preposterous myth. Well, I'm willing to bet that none of you can put your hand on your heart and say, they don't exist, because you haven't been the Gobi Desert, have you? No, you haven't. No, nor have I. So I don't know. So I'll suspend my disbelief, because I said before, you want these things to exist. We need to have monsters, fantastical creatures. We need them. It keeps this going, keeps our heart pumping. It just keeps imagination alive, and without imagination, we don't exist. We have nothing left. If we just exist in a humdrum, grey, banal 9 to 5, which of course many people do, we're doomed. Imagination, flair, creativity, that is where we should prosper and thrive. So, Mongolian Death Worms. Eels? Dragons? Legless lizards? What are they? Are they just a weird spidery mutation which lost all its legs? That's even worse. A long spider, a long sausage-shaped spider. Ugh. No, it's the legs that do it. The legs and the big fucking fangs. They're big fucking mandibles. Right, I'm out of here.